Hey everybody, this is Juan Pablo,
This is Jeff Brennan.
and we are millennials killing stuff because that's exactly what millennials do. We just
We, we
complain
were
about
born in the 90s and we complain about everything.
everything. We're just the worst human beings. We contribute absolutely nothing to society. This is our first episode ever, so there might be a few little bumps on the road here and there. But essentially, what we want to do with this podcast is that we want to just talk about anything and everything, really. We love our movies, music, hip hop,
TV
whatever.
shows.
News, and we just want to give our thoughts on them, go more in depth about stuff, and hopefully you guys can enjoy it.
And we can learn a little bit about ourselves along the way, along
That-
this journey into the minds of two millennial psychopaths.
Basically, that's exactly why I'm doing this, is to just get enlightened spiritually. I'll light some candles, get some essence out over here, some frankincense and myrrh if we're really into it, and then we'll find God.
With a nice glass of LaCroix.
LaCroix. I don't know. I got the lime flavor, and I've had like 3 of them today. I think it's better than drinking Coke, at least, because I'm not getting.
Yeah,
It's like
it's definitely a middle ground between water, which is what we all need to live and survive, and then Coke, which is toxic waste
it's
that erodes your esophagus.
pretty sure it's just taking a pound of sugar and just ingesting it. I'm looking at this can, and it's just saying carbonated water with natural flavor. I mean, the natural flavor could literally be anything. It's like we have water and earth. That's what's in this. I was like, all right, cool.
But it tastes good, and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. But I'll tell you, it was Halloween weekend, so I'm living in Chicago, and let me tell you, it was pretty, as the youth say, lit.
Do tell.
Well,
What happened on your Halloween weekend?
Well, basically, I watched all of Stranger Things, as any human would do, and it was good. But on Saturday night, I went out with some friends. Specifically one friend. It was her birthday, and she invited all of her friends. So it's that awkward phase where you're kind of just standing there in a half-assed costume while everybody else knows each other. And, I don't really live all that close to downtown, so it's like a hassle to get over there, right? I gotta take several trains in, I gotta then take a bus, I gotta have an Uber guy there. I'm taking whatever, all means to get there. And I show up to the bar early, and I awkwardly am sitting with a drink looking at these people, not realizing that we're in the same friend zone, of people that we know. And thank God for Madonna and her music. They were playing the classics, that it was less awkward, so I could at least drink and sing.
How proficient are you at singing Madonna songs?
I'm going to give myself a solid 6.5, I would say.
Out of 100,
Out of
obviously.
100 or 1,000. I think that's
Yeah,
that's
Thousand's probably a safer bet.
probably safer.
But everyone else was drunk, so they still enjoyed your presence.
They did. Everybody else was drunk. I had to drive home, so I was not. Don't drink and drive, folks. It's real bad. So I did not.
Especially in Chicago.
Especially in Chicago, yeah. I have an analogy for people here. Everybody always says, a certain state has worse drivers than the others. I'm not going to say we're worse here. I will say Illinois is the New Jersey of the Midwest.
That's high praise.
So that is basically, if you could equate that to driving, that's just what it is.
Yeah, that's tough. I would say that the worst city that I've been in terms of its drivers has been San Francisco. And so I've come to the conclusion that any major metropolis like Chicago or San Francisco just attracts the worst drivers imaginable, because everybody that can afford to live there is so rich that they usually have other people driving for them.
Yep.
And so whenever they get behind the wheel themselves, they just let loose.
But what I feel like with San Francisco is, you've got all those hills and the trolley cars, and it's so compact.
The environment is not conducive to safe driving, I would say.
If I had a stick shift in San Francisco, I would probably just not want to just live there anymore. I would
Exactly.
probably just crash my car and just be done with it.
What was crazy to me is people would drive in San Francisco like it was Oklahoma. They were just pretending like all of the roads were flat and they could just cruise through hills with no visibility, no problem. So I guess when you live in a place long enough, that becomes your natural environment.
Was it like was there just a giant sheet of fog? Like I just think that San Francisco is just fog, and there's nothing else but just fog. And I've been there.
It actually wasn't. I went there over spring break, so that might have contributed to it. I did see the fog rolling over the hills when my girlfriend and I were on Fisherman's Wharf, and so we could see like Muir Woods and stuff in the distance, and fog did roll over that in the evening. But besides that, it really wasn't too bad.
That sounds really nice. I mean, the last time when did I went for Christmas of like 2013, I think.
Okay, that's pretty
So,
recent.
Yeah, so I was definitely still in college when I went, and I remember Ghirardelli. I remember the chocolate was good there.
Yeah,
I mean,
actually, I have a story about that once you finish here.
and just walked around, went to all the record stores. We got to go to the Redwood Forest, which was awesome. If you've never been to the
Yes.
Redwood Forest, go to the Redwood Forest.
Best
One of the
part
most
of it.
beautiful places I've ever been to.
Yeah, it's gorgeous there. The one story I have about Ghirardelli Square is that so I was there with my girlfriend. I think it was like day 3 or 2 that we were there, and we went to Ghirardelli Square kind of towards when they were closing. It was fairly deep into the night, and so we went there because we both are chocolate fanatics, and we ordered a hot fudge sundae, which was like $12, and it was kind of expensive, but if it's world famous, then I'm willing to pay the upped price. And then we sit down, they give us the hot fudge sundae, and the fudge wasn't hot, and that kind of just ruined the whole contrast of a hot fudge sundae. It makes it so good.
How do you screw that up? I mean, I'm sure they have microwaves. Don't they
Yeah.
make the chocolate there?
I don't know. I guess I just missed the microwave because it was definitely cold fudge, and it's just not the same when the fudge is cold and the ice cream's cold.
You probably had the
Then-
intern. The intern was serving you that day.
Yeah,
Kind of
someone like that.
screwed the pooch
So,
on
someone
that
that was
one.
probably fired immediately after my scathing 1-star Yelp review.
Oh, scathing review. Oh,
Absolutely not. I don't even have a Yelp account.
I use it to get restaurant recommendations, and then they always want to send me emails, and no, I don't need that. Like, I do
Yeah.
not want that. It is. I think that South Park had it right when they. Oh, that was a nice little. It was a plate drop.
It was 2 Tupperwares and a AA battery, thanks to my nuisance of a dog, Nova, also known as Nova Scotia, Casanova, and some other nicknames that we've come up with them.
Supernova.
Supernova is one of them. He thinks he's Supernova. Ever since he got tall enough to, he can pretty much prop himself up on all of the counters and the tables and the desks that are in this apartment. And so, ever since he got tall enough to do that, he's just been knocking things down left and right.
Yeah, my dog used to do that. He's like 8, maybe 9 years old now. But when we first got him, he didn't know how to jump on anything. And then, as soon as he learned how to jump, it was a sequence of events. He learned how to jump, and then immediately it was jumping onto your bed and humping you. And there was no in between. He just kind of went straight to that, and then we got him neutered, and so he just lost all of his sex drive. Sorry, Bruno. We cut your manhood away.
It seems like Bruno's sex drive was a very memorable thing that he did. And I know you talked to me a lot about how much he humped you before you got neutered.
Yeah, it was memorable.
That's
I remember,
admirable.
Like it was just a thing, and then it's just he was a dog. He is a dog, so I think that's in his nature to to go through with that. And well, he's good now. He's just afraid of anything and everything. Vacuum cleaners.
Might have something to do with the fact that his balls got sucked out with a vacuum at a cold, dark veterinary clinic.
You know what?
He just dropped him off it.
I think you're onto something. It's just dog PTSD.
Yeah.
It's just.
I think there's an entire field that has been untapped by psychologists across the world. There needs to be more dog psychologists out there.
I'm pretty sure there is though. Like that's got to be a thing. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, in 2017, anything's a profession.
or it's on Reddit and someone is a dog psychologist.
Yeah, the one dog psychologist in the world gets every TV spot, every media showing.
Yeah, he's just Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Expert, yeah, of the dog psychology world.
That dude is literally everywhere. I could not see something sciencey without him or Bill.
Bill's come back. He was silent for a while, and he came back with a vengeance.
He did. His documentary looks pretty sweet. Have you heard about that?
I have not.
So it was like played in film festivals, but it's a documentary about his comeback and wanting to not only just be a force for teaching kids and society about science, but to go out and make a difference about climate change. And it looks
that's his big thing.
Yeah, it looks pretty good actually. I'm hopefully I can watch that soon. I don't know when it's going to be released, but I'm sure Netflix will pick it up with its like endless amount of content that it has.
You're greenlit.
You're greenlit, yeah. Oh god, South Park.
Yeah, and anybody with 2,000 followers on Twitter could call Netflix and be like, "Hey, I have a documentary about my come up," and they're gonna be like, "Netflix, you're greenlit."
Yeah,
but Bill Nye does have an interesting story because he doesn't really have like, I mean, what was he, like an engineering student, and then he kind of just happened into being like a worldwide kids education sensation. It's pretty interesting.
No, I think so. God, what was I gonna say? I feel like with the Netflix, their deal. I mean, even if you look at like anybody with followers, I mean, Jimmy Tatro was on American Vandal, who he is just the perfect douchebag.
Yeah,
in every sense.
He's got his work cut out for him.
Without a doubt. No, I mean, but that show though, it's I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I mean, it got slow in the middle. I mean, that.
Yeah, that slowness kind of killed it for me. I still haven't finished it. I'm close. I think I'm more than halfway through. So I'd appreciate you not spoiling the ending, but at least the beginning, I think, just the whole concept of the show as a parody of true crime TV was just really funny to me.
Yeah, no, I think so too, because it's kind of meta how it's like Netflix is producing a show about making fun of Netflix true crime shows.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's sometimes hilarious, and at other times I was like, you are way too profound for me right now. Like I was like, I should not be feeling so much emotion towards Jimmy Tatro and how his character is being treated by the other high school kids. But
yeah, and I'm assuming that happened more towards the end of the series.
Yeah, it was like the last 2 episodes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked it though, because like true crime shows by their nature are very over the top, and when they're so over the top about something as innocuous as him just spray painting dicks, or whoever the culprit is spray painting dicks on the teachers' cars, it's the perfect combination.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I was impressed, and I thought I would have more to say about it, but right now it's just kind of like fleeing my head. That'll do that when you watch so much Stranger Things and literally your mind is just filled with synths, just 80s synths and music. This is so good. Yeah, it's like it's the music production and the mixing and everything is so good in the second season.
Yeah, would you say it's better than the first in terms of that aspect, if not the plot as well?
I would say yes. It's better in the cinematography and sound in general, and how it's developed through all of that.
Yeah, they probably had a bigger budget too to finance all that after the success of the first season.
Yeah, or it all went to marketing. I can't even go anywhere.
Too, I saw it everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's
I was made very aware that it was debuting. What was it? Thursday at midnight.
Yeah, October 27th.
Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of Netflix shows, I know you and I have been talking about Mindhunter.
Yes, Mindhunter.
Wow. Yeah, if you haven't seen Mindhunter, everybody, go see that. That show is just excellent in pretty much every regard. And, props to David Fincher to going back to doing what David Fincher does, which I would like to see a sequel to his Facebook movie, because everything going on with Facebook now would just be a great Social Network 2.
It warrants a sequel.
Yeah, it would be Social Network 2, Russia. Just everything is just, memes of Pepe the Frog and just absolute worst part of humanity.
Yeah, because Facebook started with like a pretty innocent goal of just connecting people with each other, or didn't even start out as like, it was like a primordial Tinder where you would just be looking at like different people from your college campus, and then it expanded to everyone using it, and it started like that, and then once they started looking at how to make a profit off of it, it just shifted almost entirely towards news and advertisements that don't look like advertisements. And it became a really powerful force for the election and our current political climate.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts, actually. I think there's a book about it. It's, God, I can't remember the name. I'll have to look it up. But basically, the author is chronicling how the United States and society went from, just simple news and media on television and radio and newspaper to developing into what it is today. And that sort of shift into this whole realm of fake news and people putting out content that isn't real, and how they've become citizen journalists and all kinds of stuff. And it looks like a really interesting read. I think he was on The Daily Show or something, and he spoke about it, and it just seemed like it was really good. But off topic, Mindhunter. That's what we're talking about. Mindhunter.
Mindhunter. We are killing Mindhunter this episode.
We are killing Mindhunter this episode. Because that's what millennials do. We kill stuff. And so, much like that, I killed Mindhunter in just like a few days and just watched it all. And so, for those of you who don't know what it's about, basically it's about these... it's an FBI agent in the 1970s, and it sort of it tells the story of how the True Crimes, or Special Crimes Unit, I believe. Special Crimes Unit, or was it in...
Well, they were with the Behavioral Science Unit, BSU, and then they investigated some of the most profane and depraved acts of violence that humans have committed against one another. And
right.
I think that the time period that the show is set in is one of its greatest strengths.
Without a doubt, and I'm pretty sure I just got the Behavioral Science Unit mixed up with the Special Victims Unit, Law and Order. Dun, dun.
Yeah, it's really not that different. I think Mindhunter definitely did it a little bit better, where it really got into the psychology of the killers and everything. But I'll let you continue on your introduction of the show.
So you have the main character, Holden, and he is a teacher at Quantico over at the FBI headquarters. And so he gets this idea while meeting this his girlfriend, where they want to interview psychopaths and serial killers about the methodology as to what they did. And so what's great about, like Jeff said, with the time period is that, all of this is new. And you have characters who are coming up with terms and throwing out ideas that really weren't discussed by people in academia, let alone law enforcement. And so, you have Manson killings. You have all these cults coming up in this time period. And you have people starting to see, the systematic killing of all these innocent people, and society's kind of freaking out. So how do we understand that? And how do we kind of go from there? And so that's what the show proposes.
Even in the show, I don't know how historically accurate this is, but Holden and Tinch and everyone come up with the term serial killer, which is something that seems so well ingrained into the lexicon that we have. But, back in the 70s, it was just emerging, and there wasn't even a term for it.
Yeah, no, and I think that what's great about this show is really after, it's 10 episodes long, it's really not that violent. Like, it has, like, an opening scene where there's a little bit of blood and some gore, but it's really all just psychological. And the interviews are just the most chilling, and it gets underneath your skin, some of these guys.
They're super compelling.
Yeah.
I think it was so easy for the show to have taken that route where they could have just made it like a gore fest where they could have just made it a gore fest in the sense that they could have been very graphic with the violence because these were violent crimes, and I think that would have taken away from the show a little bit because instead the show focused on the psychology of the killers versus the crimes that they actually committed, and I think it was pretty unique in that regard. That's definitely what compelled me to watch it so ravenously over the past week.
Yeah, and I think that another one of its strengths is how they present their killers, right? They're in a confined, they're in jail, so they're not on the hunt. These people are already caught, they're already behind bars, they're incarcerated. That whole psychological aspect plays into these interviews. Are they manipulating you? Are they not manipulating them? Are they, is it all a joke to them? What are they revealing? And the show uses a lot of it uses like crime scene photos as well as discussions to vividly paint the portrait of these horrific killings, and I think that that's a really big step that really attracts the viewer as opposed to just having those scenes shown out, acted out, and done through actors.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a video posted on Reddit that was comparing the real Ed Kemper's prison interviews with the interview that was in Mindhunter, and it was pretty similar. Like, I think the actor did a really good job of portraying Ed Kemper as just like this hyper intelligent, very almost remorseless serial killer.
Yeah, I think that's actually the best part of the show was Ed Kemper's performance, and he's really only in it for I think 3 episodes. Maybe 4, but he's like a guest in one of them. But just that whole, they eat a pizza together, and he's talking about murdering his grandparents and his mother.
He's so casual about it.
Yeah, it's like I'm playing a game of golf with the boys on Saturday kind of talk, like not even.
Yeah.
And he's killing people. He's killing his mom, and the cinematography is really awesome too. I mean, just. These long shots that are zooming in slowly on these characters. The lighting is never really fully dark, but it's never fully lit. It's this kind of intermediate gray that's just very foreboding, and I think that's a really great aspect to it. But I did think that it got kind of slow in the latter episodes, kind of towards 7 or 8, and I think that it was, it goes on these side plots a little bit.
Yeah,
and,
it did.
I just think it wasn't really necessary, and it adds to the characterization of Holden, but kind of by the end.
I think that was my argument would have been that was the purpose of those sidetracks. Like, for example, with the principal, and how the principal wasn't really doing anything. He may do something in the next season because when his wife was talking about that after he got fired, that he was just completely morose and he was sitting alone at night watching snow on the TV, just tuned to a static channel. And the entire series they're talking about stressors that can motivate serial killer behavior. And I predict that principal is going to turn out to kill some kids next season. But going back to my first point, I think that it was really important to show the drawbacks of Holden's methods, of Tinch's methods, because there are cases where the principal tickling the kid's feet was completely innocuous, and they just ruined that man's life essentially.
Yeah, but to be fair, that dude was also really creepy.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, if I was a parent, I would be furious. Yeah,
no shit. Like you have him, and he's just like. Your kid gets in trouble for doing whatever kids do, throw a pencil at somebody or, they get in a fight at recess. And he basically tells them not to do it again by bribing them with dimes and nickels and then tickling their feet. Like, that's just...
super creepy.
That's super creepy.
I agree.
But
if it never went further than that, then they just ruin the dude's life, and potentially... by ruining the dude's life, he may escalate to more intense behavior. I know that all the serial killers in the show are real serial killers, so I don't know if there's a case of a principal that was a foot tickler. That escalated to a corpse tickler. But I think that might be something that we see in the next season.
Potentially. I think what was awesome also is the little vignettes. It's not really a vignette, but it's like kind of flashes towards a killer who hasn't committed
Yeah.
a killing yet. At the beginning of every episode, it's like 30 seconds.
And do you know who that killer is supposed to be?
Yeah, the ABT killer or something like that.
BTK.
BTK. ABT was the company he worked for, or ADT rather. Yeah.
That's hilarious. It's just all acronyms. What's also hilarious is BTK stands for Bind, Torture, Kill. It's a real knee slapper, that acronym.
The acronym killer. Kills you with acronyms. But that was... I read a little bit about him. All I know is that he was in Kansas, good old Kansas, where I went to school in. Shout out to my Jayhawks, Rock Chalk. But it was... The guy who plays him too, I mean, you really don't get a sense of a lot of the character, only the beginnings of eventually what he's going to do. And the final shot of the season won't ruin it, but it goes back to him. And there's just this evil in his eyes that I think the actor did a great job in capturing. I don't know, maybe you know more about him if you kind of want to attest to the strength and quality of that character through what you've read about him.
Yeah, so I actually don't know that much about him. I was kind of confused as to who he was for the entire season, and so I just looked up Park City, Kansas serial killer, and he popped up. And so I learned about the acronym. I'm assuming by Bind, Torture, Kill, and those pictures that were in the last episode. Pretty sadistic dude. He seemed... The way they characterized him, he seemed very prepared and planned. Like, the entire series, they were looking at different descriptors for serial killers, and some were unplanned, and they just did it randomly. And then there was others that, really planned it out, and he seems like one of the guys that plans it out. Just all the elaborate scenes of him, like, tying a knot over and over while watching TV, just, like, getting that down to his muscle memory. He, like, laid out his jacket with his gun and his gloves.
Yeah, and his wife was in the room when he was tying those knots. You know, his wife and kid, I think.
Yeah, they have no idea. It's really... I mean, it's pretty unusual for a serial killer to have a wife and kids, because, I mean, even if he hadn't killed anybody yet, they definitely have a certain personality type that doesn't really invite, strong or stable relationships. I mean, he didn't really look like a very happy guy either. He was always very... very serious, very foreboding.
Yeah, I think I would just be incredibly unsettled if the serial killer was like happy-go-lucky and like
Yeah, no, that's definitely scarier.
That's definitely scarier if he's like, oh, hey folks, if he's just apparently Mickey Mouse happy.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the I can't remember his name, but he was the guy with the foot fetish.
The guy from Oregon?
The portly gentleman?
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy from Oregon.
Portly gentleman. What a nice way to put it about someone who's a terrible human being.
Yeah. So, he was kind of Mickey Mouse-like. He would walk into the interview room laughing, and that guy was really creepy. And he was kind of a foil to Edmund Kemper in a way, because Edmund was very upfront about his crimes, and... the portly gentleman couldn't really even admit to them, and he kind of talks about himself in the third person. And so, I mean, I'm sure that's very true to how the actual people were when they were interviewed. And so it just did a really good job of educating me about things that I'd never taken the time to really look up or research before.
Yeah, and I think that's another strength to the show, is that it doesn't, it gives you information into basic guidelines as to how the FBI kind of deciphers someone's behavior and kind of predict the patterns of how they might act. But at the same time, it does a great job of showing the sheer difference in the methodology and the thinking of everybody. I mean, you have people who are very forward, these sociopaths and psychopaths that are they seem, gentlemanly, or they seem very, they have lots of manners, and they're very kind in quotations. They're not kind. They murdered people. They're evil. They're terrible. So heavy quotations there. Charming. This is, you look at Ed Kemper in the show, and the actor gives him this charming sort of demeanor.
Yeah, I'd have a beer with him.
And then you have the other folks, the other guy from Illinois who I can't even know why I'm blanking all these names. There's lots of serial killers. This world's a terrible place. But the guy
too many serial killers.
Yeah,
cut down the serial killers, guys.
Yeah, and he is this like very gritty, and he's an asshole, and he's very violent and vulgar. But
was he the guy that killed the nurses?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not trying to ruin anything. Like, these are just real cases. These are real people. So
I think we can assume that we can just go spoiler free, because it has been out for like, I don't know how long it's been out for, but I think it makes it easier to talk about it if we don't have to guard anything.
That's true. So Holden is actually an alien.
I mean, that's a serious possibility.
Honestly, the dude's a sociopath, so
yeah. I think that was a really cool way to end the season, and just overall to include as a plot point, because the way that he would go about the interviews and the way that he didn't really seem to be affected by it all, compared to like Tench, who had to break down in front of his wife. He has to look at these things, grisly, horrifying images all day. And it's definitely hard on a person. I can't even imagine how troubling it would be to work on cases like that.
Yeah, let alone these people who have basically no one to go off of, right? There's no mentor or someone that teaches you how to go through this process without coming out of the other side being like completely torn apart as a human being, which is why I really loved Tench as a character, because he was, this not by the book, but a very, typical FBI agent, good guy, solid American patriot, that comes from a time, during the Cold War and during, coming into the Bureau with a mindset that, what you did was always good for God, country, and for everybody else.
Absolutely.
And to be thrust upon a project where not everything is black and white and everything is morally gray, like so many things are, I think it takes a toll on him, and it makes him a really dynamic and interesting character to kind of follow through. And I think the whole family life was awesome too. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that added a lot to his character, because the thing is, it seems like Holden and Debbie, like, the difference between them and Tench and his family is Tench really, really cares about his family, and the fact that his son is mute, he can't really connect with them even though he would love to. It really puts like a stress on him. But with Holden, he's very absorbed within the work, and like even when him and Debbie broke up, he was just like, let's not drag this on, we'll come back in a week. And he was just very cold about it, which because he is a psychopath or a sociopath, that definitely draws a difference between the two. And the part that you were saying about how Tench was thrust into the job, I definitely agree with, because I think you'd almost have to be a sociopath to be able to talk to all of these other sociopaths and psychopaths without going crazy yourself. And so, like, Holden was really perfect for the job, and then Tench was kind of just thrust into it as his partner.
Yeah, kind of forced. And the thing about the kind of what I liked about Holden, and Holden's a pretty terrible person too, but in different ways, right? But what I think I enjoyed about Holden was that slowly but surely, as the project kind of progresses through the series, he begins to it's like therapy for him,
Yes.
It's kind of solidifying his place in everything that he's doing by having these conversations. Like he is the good guy for highlighting everything, but the choices he makes, they're not because he's doing it for the good of the project, but it's because
it's for himself.
It's for himself. He's very selfish and for the most part pretty emotionally distant from society and those around him.
Definitely. Like at the let's see. Kind of lost my train of thought there. He sorry.
Way to go.
Yeah. Fuck. So he where was I gonna go with that?
See, even your dog's mad now.
Yeah, my dog hates me. I'm a failure, an absentee father to this poor animal. Okay. So he's when you start the show, you see him and he seems pretty naive. He seems like very idealistic and that he's got like a little bit of an ego issue. And then as the show progresses and he keeps being called like Sherlock Holmes and there's things being written about him in the papers and everything, his head gets way too big. And it really starts to affect the project because he starts doing these side cases where, he investigates that principal, where he potentially puts away a guy, the tree cutter, just based off the fact that he was a tree cutter who had raped somebody in another state. And, essentially just off that, he kind of forced a confession out of him. And I'm not entirely convinced that was the person who definitively did it. There wasn't any hard evidence. It was all circumstantial plus very persuasive and evocative interviewing techniques. And so he just keeps getting this bigger and bigger ego. And the part that you were saying about how it's therapy for him is, I think, 100% correct. Because the very end of the series, he goes to Ed Kemper's hospital bed for absolutely no reason. And Ed Kemper even brings that up to him. He was like, "Why are you here?" And Holden has a bit of an existential crisis because he's like, "I don't know. I have no idea why I'm here." And he starts to realize that he's not doing this for the FBI or for the furtherment of our understanding of psychopaths. He's doing it because he has a sick obsession with these serial killers.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that just that final shot of that breakdown, where he like kind of goes back to the fetal position and he's like crying and he like can't breathe and everything. I think is a great way to segue into a second season where he has to redefine how he's going to act if they're going to keep doing this. Because you have the doctor from Boston who's there, and I mean you have Chet Tench and everybody, and the FBI is wagging their finger at him for what he's done. But I think that he needed to have that moment, that part where he realized that it was getting all way too mixed up in it, and that will then lead us into a second season where we'll continue having these interviews, and I assume also deal with the guy in Kansas, and really be able to finally get some questions into why he did what was wrong and everybody else, and how they kind of all interconnect.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm looking forward to the next season. It was a really well done show, and I think it's one of Netflix's best.
And it came out of nowhere, right? Like, we had all this marketing for Stranger Things and House of Cards and all these other shows. But I think that ultimately, if I'm going to go top show, I'm always going to go with BoJack Horseman, number one Netflix show.
That's fair.
But I would rank this as one of the top ones. And I think that I recommended it to another friend too. He's like on episode 5 now. He said he loved it. And I think that that a lot of people will watch it. It'll gain more traction through word of mouth, and it'll be good. And I think it was greenlit for a second season. I don't know.
It should be. I mean, I feel like that would be almost criminal to end with such a cliffhanger, and then for them to be like, "Hey guys, we don't actually have enough money to continue to a next season."
Well, I mean,
I would wager that it's 100% gonna have a second season.
Well, I mean, we need more Seinfeld specials, and which, by the way, Seinfeld is great, and I'm glad that Netflix gave him a special. But a lot of those jokes were just used on Seinfeld.
I actually haven't even heard about that. So they're, in their like late 50s now, early 50s, and are they just like repeating the jokes that were on Seinfeld?
Yeah, they're just repeating the jokes that were on Seinfeld, which that is one of the best comedies of all time. I mean, greatest bass line, boom, 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 and it's just
iconic.
It's iconic. I love Seinfeld, but it was a little disappointing to have a lot of the episodes' plots integrated into the show as jokes. It just seemed kind of lazy on literally the richest like comedian in the world. He has like $600 million.
Jerry Seinfeld?
Yeah,
Is he really?
That dude is wealthy.
From what? Just from Seinfeld?
Yeah, Seinfeld reruns. He does a lot of live shows that he plays like arenas. He
Holy-
has that show, like what is it? Comedians in cars with getting coffee.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
Yeah.
took off.
Yeah, it did. He's like interviewed like Obama, a bunch of other people. It's pretty good. The one with John Oliver was really funny, just because I love John Oliver.
Yeah. Wow, he's worth more than Jay-Z.
Isn't that nuts? And
That
Jay-Z,
does not seem right to me.
I
Jay-Z
know.
is like this genius businessman.
Jay-Z's
Jerry
literally a mogul.
Seinfeld.
Like Jerry Seinfeld does not have Tidal and or Married to Beyonce.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that website took into account Beyonce's net worth.
No,
She's got a lot of money on her own.
I think she's like got like $400 million in net worth. I mean, she's great.
Beyonce.
Beyonce. She's amazing. It's just, yeah. That's really all I have to say. Like, if there's anything about Beyonce, it's just, yeah, she's really good. She's great, and then that's all I have to say about that.
God, that's so crazy to me. So
Hot take, though.
literally just off Seinfeld and Coffee with People,
Drinks with humans.
he has more money than the bottom, like 30% of humanity. Probably more.
Yep, probably more. Yep, sounds like Seinfeld to me. Yeah, no, he's very funny. I mean, I love Seinfeld. I think I prefer Curb Your Enthusiasm more, just because I love Larry David.
Enthusiasm's hilarious.
Yeah, Larry David is the king of awkward comedy.
Yeah. Just that outro with the music goes da, 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 da. However it goes.
Oh yeah, I think it's from like an Italian opera. I'm pretty sure. Like just the most highbrow of music and culture
applied to
the most awkward of everything.
We're looking up a fun fact to see how much he got paid per episode.
Of Curb Your Enthusiasm or Seinfeld?
Oh, Seinfeld.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. $5 million per episode. I think was his high. I think that was the highest he was offered.
I think didn't the Friends actors get like 11 million every episode?
That's crazy.
Yeah, that show is. I mean, you ever follow that Twitter account, Modern Day Seinfeld?
No, but I probably should.
You absolutely should. Everybody should. It's just like memes and a bunch of tweets about like modern day Seinfeld. So it's like, what if Jerry and George got iPad? It's just like, it's just really funny, and it always just like, it just craps on Friends being terrible. And like during the election, they would have these like tweets where they had photos of the debates or one of the candidates out in the trail, and the tagline, kind of like the headline from the news station, would be Clinton says bring back Seinfeld, like all kinds of stuff, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I should definitely follow that then.
I mean, out of all the hundreds of millions of Twitter accounts you could follow,
there are a lot to follow.
A little too much. I sometimes I just look at Twitter and I'll see one tweet. I'll pick up my phone. It'll be early, I'm getting my coffee. I'll look at the tweet and I'll just go, nah, not today. And then I just put my phone down and enjoy my coffee and go on with life.
I have to be honest, Twitter is my favorite of the social medias.
I mean, it's just yeah.
I try to avoid all the politics on Twitter, but just like some of the jokes that people make get me more than anything I've ever seen on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat.
I agree. I would say it's definitely the best for that. And then there's just some accounts that just like make life worth living for, like Vince Staples' Twitter.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, Vince Staples is not only an amazing musician, but his Twitter is just fantastic.
I don't know how he can be such a Renaissance man with that. He makes the most like gritty and dark and serious and really good hip hop music, but then he's like a trained comic on Twitter.
Oh, absolutely.
He just comes up with the funniest analogies and everything.
Did you see that whole thing where he got in like a fight with somebody? It was supposed to be like 2 weeks ago, and he just like kept on responding with these zingers. And
Yeah, that guy was like the lead singer of a metalcore band, if I'm correctly informed. And
really?
yeah,
I don't
think
even
so.
know.
Let me see.
I mean, he's just. And then the best part about it is when he's talking about the Clippers and he's just like trashing on DeAndre Jordan on the Clippers, and
Yeah.
he's just the man is a national treasure.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite people. One thing that I do wish Twitter would kind of relax on or implement some thing to control is all the people that just tweet storm Trump's tweets or any like pretty much it mainly happens with Trump where the moment Trump tweets there's going to be a guy that has like 30 responses to him where he's just responding to himself over and over and then that's all you see in the comment section.
Yeah, and it's always like the same four people.
I don't know how they do it. I don't know. I think they have, and the thing is, they're all blocked by him too. So I don't know how they like. I think they have another account that like automatically retweets when Trump tweets, and then they like click it through that, and then they just immediately get to typing.
Well,
Because
see, that's so weird to me because I had noticed that because Lord knows I'm not going to follow that man. That's just a
yeah,
that's just an ulcer waiting to happen literally every morning when you
wake
read.
up. It's like, oh, what he posted for him.
Well, I'm going to die today. But I always was curious as to how they do that because I mean I use Twitter. I'm technologically competent, but like to go through all the notions just to be able to tweet the same pictures and the same crappy memes and content is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it harms the platform for sure. Like I pulled up Trump's most recent tweet, and there is a woman by the name of SL and in SoCal who put like 20 tweets with like these bad infographics about Trump and misinformation, stuff like that. And it's really hard to read because the way it works is if you get the top tweet and then you respond to yourself, it's automatically shown. And so you can just occupy entire comment sections.
That seems
with
ridiculous.
Your bias. Yeah. I did see that Twitter was going to implement something where anytime there's an advertisement, it shows how much they paid for it and who paid for it. So like, if you get some political advertisement, you'll know who it's coming from and like how much they paid for it.
Huh.
Which I think is good, but I also think it's really easy to circumvent that by just, getting Joe Schmo off the street to pay for it, and then you just funnel the money through him. I think there's a lot of ways to get around it, but it definitely is a step in the right direction. How we were talking earlier about how social media is being used to influence politics.
Absolutely. And, God, I had another thought too, but again, I lost it. It's Sunday.
It is Sunday.
I have
You
work
have work.
tomorrow.
I
Yeah.
have work tomorrow as well.
Oh, that's right. Your cool internship. That's
It's
cool.
really not an internship. It's really more of like it's an office aide position.
Oh.
And that's about all there is to it. But yeah, I have to be there at 8 a.m., which is probably. Do you start work at 8?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, but you have to commute super far. My office is like 10 minutes away.
I gotta zigzag my way through millions of just angry drivers.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta get to work.
Just pissed off at how bad the Bears are.
Yeah.
We're losing all the time. Chicago sports. Let me tell you, great fans. The teams are just a huge letdown. like the
Why
Bulls.
is that?
I mean, you had Michael Jordan, right, in the '90s,
Yeah.
and
then nothing afterwards.
so I mean, the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are great. They've won, I believe, 3 championships in the past 5, like a decade. So they've been really good. Not that I watch all that much hockey.
Yeah.
But you had Jordan, you had Pippen, and you had all these great teams in the '90s, and then that was really it for basketball. I mean, you had phenom Derrick Rose. He breaks every bone in both of his legs multiple times. He's literally glass and just shatters every time you hit him.
Is that guy from SpongeBob?
Like the guy
Who wakes up every day with does he have paper skin and glass bones, and he doesn't fall asleep until his heart attacks knock him out for the night.
Something like that.
Yeah, so that's Derrick Rose in a nutshell.
I mean, Derrick Rose 2010 had his MVP season, and he was a monster. I mean, it was like I think he was the youngest person ever to get an MVP, and he's a great player. Now he plays for the Cavs, but it took like multiple trades. But basically, the town has these amazing people who are such great fans, and then the owners just disappoint them every time. Like, they can't draft a quarterback that's consistent. I mean, they got this new guy, Trubisky, who's fine. I mean, he's not great.
Sounds like a snack food, like Triscuits or something.
But it just that's actually a perfect way to describe him. He's snack food.
He's snack food.
Like, he played 13 total starting games in college for North Carolina. Okay. So to put your faith that much in a quarterback, when you had a pretty strong quarterback class, I mean, you had like Deshaun Watson, who's killing it in Houston, and it's just this poor town. And then like the Bulls, you have their starting power forward get into a fight with another one of their power forwards, Nikola Mirotic, and the dude punches him and breaks 3 bones in his body, like in his face, so he can't play.
Wow.
And they're on the same team.
That's crazy.
But they won their first game the other day. That was a pretty good game. They played Atlanta. So I'm trying to keep up with all their shindigs.
That's good. I almost know nothing about sports in general, so it's very interesting to me. Is it entirely the coach's fault for drafting bad players?
No, the coach has input into who they want to draft, but it's ultimately chosen by the general manager. Yeah, the general manager. Yeah. So, like on draft day, it can be. I mean, it's an administrative thing, really. So, and mind you, I watch a lot of sports, but I'm not. You know, you shouldn't put me on ESPN by any means.
Yeah, exactly.
But so the general manager, and a bunch of folks in the administration will, leading up to the day, will scout players, will see if they can trade anybody in the draft, and get the best available player. And so, if your team performs poorly the season before, you'll get a higher draft pick, unless you had traded that before, and then you get that pick from another team, which is a whole other complicated process. But you have to jump through all these hoops to make sure you pick the right guy. And it's dependent upon your team's needs, right? Like,
yeah, there's a whole strategy behind it. For sure.
Yeah, if you have a superstar at a center, you don't, in basketball, you don't need to draft another center. That's redundant. You have one that's going to, so you want to get probably a point guard or a shooting guard who can give the guy the ball and, facilitate running plays and all that kinds of stuff.
And is there a budget cap with all of this? Do you have to pick, do you have to distribute your money correctly so that you can get the stars, but you also have enough to pay for the small guys, or do the wealthiest teams get to pick whoever they want?
I mean, obviously, wealthier teams have the chance to be able to pay for better players. It's what you get with like Golden State and the Cavs, and they're able to get these huge contracts. But yeah, you do have to negotiate that. There's a salary cap, and so at a given time, you need to have 12 players on an NBA team. So you have to distribute your contract money that you have as a team to all those guys. And they just extended that cap so players are able to get more money. So, people like Russell Westbrook and Mike Conley and all these guys got huge contracts in the offseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once you have, how much does Russell Westbrook make? Does he make, $100 million a year or something?
Actually, let me see. Russell Westbrook contract. Now, I'm not entirely sure at the top of my head. So he got a $205 million contract extension.
For how many years?
For 5 years.
Okay. So that's $41 million a year. It's pretty good.
$41 million a year, plus his shoe deals, his, he's on a bunch of commercials, and so it's a ton.
So my question is, once you're making $40 million a year, what do you do with all of that money? Because I can't even fathom. I can't even fathom balling out to an extent to where I would need more money to ball out with.
That's a good point. You've reached maximum balling out money with a certain amount of money.
I seriously think at a certain point when you're making that much money every year, you just wake up thinking about ways to spend it. Because you definitely don't have to wait for anything. Anything that you want, you can immediately have.
Well, Yeah, that's a really good point because, like, I mean, you have some players who, I mean, you have Michael Jordan's a billionaire now. I mean,
Yeah.
just how he's branded himself and all that. Players like LeBron, you know, they have these huge contracts and they have so much money that they make through advertising and through being sponsors for products that, you know, they do have all this money to spend. And I think that depending on the kind of person and player the athlete is, they start to build a brand where they become engaged with the community. A lot of them have charities. A lot of them,
that's definitely what I would do.
Yeah, some players will pay for college tuition for young people in the community, or
Right.
You know, they build a shoe. You build a shoe brand like Jordan did. Like Westbrook has a deal now with
he's
Jordan
got
shoes.
right?
Yeah, it was like 10-year contract. And then there's a variety of stuff. So like LeBron, I mean, he's not only with the community, he's produced films, he's produced albums. You know, he's getting involved in hip hop. He you know, public motivation and you know, speaking and, you know, community engagement, all this kind of stuff. So it's really interesting, and it's very interesting to see modern athletes having to deal with being a voice for, you know, these groups in society while also having to maintain their own image. And
Yeah,
I think
it's a lot of pressure.
It's tons of pressure, and you know, they're asking people who are coming out of college who are 20, you know, 22. I mean, Lonzo Ball, he's the face of the Lakers, and he's 19. He turns 20 in November.
That's insane.
Yeah, and he's pretty good.
It's a lot of responsibility, and yeah, exactly. It's a lot to put onto somebody. The point I was going to make earlier is that I think I have a theory. It's not really much of a theory. It's not really mine, but I think that once you get to a certain salary or a certain amount of money, then everything afterwards is just like. I think once you get to a certain point, you reach like the top of the mountain, and there's like not really much more to go. And I think it can almost be kind of depressing in the sense that you don't really have anything that you're striving for. But then at the same time, I guess it's different if your main goal is to make money versus if your main goal is to like do the work that you enjoy doing.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between just making money and then athletes who are really striving to be the best they can be. So
yeah, because
you make all
that
this
is the
money.
case with a lot of them. The money is just a side effect to them being a legend in their sport.
And being incredible. Yeah, I mean, you know, you shoot to win a Super Bowl, a World Series, MVP, or, you know, you bring an all-star on a team and do all kinds of stuff. So I think that sports are important in that sense that they
absolutely.
are just such an inspiration to tons of people, and giving that sense of community and camaraderie is why I've always been drawn to watching sports. Even when, you know, KU football loses just all the time. And just there was like a stretch of games where we had like negative yardage on offense and just didn't score. And it was like
just saying there as a fan, like, geez.
Yeah, at that point,
hard.
you know, it's hard, but you know, it gives you something to cheer for and gives you something to do. Like,
yeah,
you know, just,
no, I think sports are fantastic. They're like they're kind of like the peak of athleticism for humanity. You know,
Yeah.
we get to see humans operating at like the highest possible performance in whatever sport they're doing, and there's such a variety in the different sports and the different skills that people have to be the best at them.
for sure.
Because there's, you know, basketball players who are just these giants that are really accurate and graceful in their movements. And then, you know, you have ballet dancers and track runners and marathon runners.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you have like people like Serena Williams, who's just insane.
Yeah.
Like, if I had to pick the greatest tennis player of all time, you know, everyone's always going to be like, you know, Roger Federer and all kinds. I'm going with Serena Williams. Like, that she's incredible in every sense. She won Wimbledon while she was pregnant.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't
Like,
know that, actually.
Yeah, she's an amazing human being, and just, you know, greatest tennis star out there. And she's going to come back from having a kid and raising a family and continue to perform at such an incredible level.
Yeah. Do you think her performance is going to drop after that? Because I feel like it would hurt anybody to have a kid. It just... the whole process, I think, is really hard on a woman's body.
I mean, it's possible, but I think that, I mean, there's athletes that will break legs or will do other stuff that
Yeah,
will be
that's true.
incredibly straining on their body. So I think she can perform just as well, and if not better. I mean, she'll train. She's going to continue her training, and I'm excited to keep on watching her in her career. Keep on
Yeah.
playing the way she's played.
Yeah, when you're talking about inspiration, she's up there as one of the top ones for young girls out there.
Yeah, for just anybody, really. Just why sports are awesome.
Yeah, it really gives like a figure, well, not a figurehead, but like a spokesperson, and a spokesperson you can connect to, because a lot of these sports stars, I think, like especially with soccer, it's a game that everyone's played at least once, and just to see someone excel at that high level of a sport that everyone has played, it's really something special.
Well, I gotta cut this because I gotta
'Cause
work tomorrow.
You're,
I gotta
you're an adult with real responsibilities.
Yeah, I have to contribute
Rents
to
and
society
taxes.
and rents and taxes. Damn you, government! But yes,
Yeah. Why
I
can't
gotta
we
pay
just have
those
everything for
taxes. Everything for free. That sounds easy. But yeah, great talk about Mindhunter. It's
Absolutely,
great.
yeah.
Everybody go watch it. Highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're done with Stranger Things and you need something to watch
Watch
that.
Mindhunter. Yeah.
Or you could just watch Stranger Things season 1 and season 2 again if that's your cup of tea.
Live your life in an endless loop of Stranger Things, and
In an
at a
endless
certain point
loop.
you'll wake up and you don't know whether you're in the upside down or the upside up.
It's just upside up. It's just basically 80s nostalgia on loop and loop over and over again.
Yeah,
It's like
you can get trapped
Groundhog
in there.
Day. Groundhog Day
careful.
with more Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, that's that is the perfect summary for the show.
All right, well,
You got it.
awesome. Thank you so much for listening. I've definitely enjoyed talking, and we'll put out some more content later. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. A happy Halloween, too. That'll be a great time.
And a quick shout out to our sponsors, MeUndies. Use the code Jeff Brennan to get 20% off your first pair.
Get Jeff Brennan a pair of MeUndies.
Please. I need that micromodal fabric to just cushion my extremities.
I've never heard of MeUndies, I think.
Apparently, they're the most comfortable thing ever.
Well, eventually, if we get to that level, we will. This sponsorship's about.
This is an official plea to MeUndies.com to sponsor our podcast. We have a very diverse and large following. After one episode, we already have one follower.
At that point, we should just get Netflix to greenlight our show.
Yeah, I think just with this content, we could easily get a 5-season full universe Netflix series.
Followed by original movies.
Followed by original movies and, merchandise, radio spots.
Pop-up bars.
You'll see us on Jimmy Kimmel within the next week.
Sweet. I'm excited.
All right, I
Kimmel's a
think
good
that went
dude.
pretty well. I'll let you get to bed.
All right. Have a good night, man.
You too. Peace.
Bye, everybody.